Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring AI. And to help us, we've got some insights from Dario Amodei and Amanda Askell at Anthropic, as well as Chris Olah, who's a leading voice in AI interpretability.
Sounds like a fascinating lineup.
It is.
Huh.
And we're going to be diving deep. For example, Amodei predicts some really major advancements in AI,
Oh, like what?
like potentially reaching human-level abilities as early as 2026, 2027.
Wow, so that's just a few years away.
It is. He sees AI revolutionizing things like biology, programming, really kind of reshaping our world as we know it.
It's interesting that he puts a date on it. A lot of people have been talking about significant AI advances, but not necessarily putting a specific time frame.
Yeah.
What makes Amodei so confident about this timeline?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It's not like he's talking about some singularity moment, when everything changes all at once.
Right.
He sees it as more of like a continuous growth and exponential growth of AI capabilities.
Okay.
And it's a pattern he's observed throughout his career. He's been at Google, OpenAI, so he's got quite the background.
Yeah, he definitely knows what he's talking about. So he's seen this kind of movie before, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like, what specifically makes him so confident about this timeline?
He's seen AI overcome a lot of obstacles that at the time seemed like they were going to be really difficult to overcome. Like, for example, a few years ago, experts thought that AI would really struggle with tasks requiring like complex reasoning.
Yeah. Common sense kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we've seen incredible progress with things like large language models and reinforcement learning. So AI has been exceeding expectations for a while now.
So that's where that confidence comes from.
Exactly. Amodei's seen it happen over and over again.
So if AI is advancing this rapidly, how does he see it impacting fields like biology and healthcare?
He's actually predicted a revolution in those fields.
Wow.
Within the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
He thinks AI is going to become like a tireless research assistant, like analyzing huge data sets, designing experiments, just speeding up scientific discovery.
So like taking over a lot of the more tedious tasks, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. He even suggested that AI could help us double human lifespans by, unlocking new breakthroughs.
Doubling. Okay, that's a bold claim. How does he think AI is going to achieve that?
Well, he compared AI to a legion of grad students tirelessly working around the clock. Imagine AI sifting through mountains of data, medical data, finding subtle patterns that humans would miss.
I see.
Or, designing drug therapies based on an understanding of how cells work. Amodei believes AI can just amplify human ingenuity.
Okay, so it's not replacing humans, it's more like augmenting their abilities.
Exactly, a partnership.
Makes sense. But what about the people building these AI systems? What about the programmers?
Right. Well, Amodei sees AI handling a lot of those tasks, actually most coding tasks, by 2026 to 2027.
Oh, wow.
He thinks AI is going to be able to write and execute code, even learn from it. It'll create this feedback loop, basically.
So does that mean programmers are out of a job in the next few years?
Not necessarily. Amodei thinks humans will shift to focusing on higher level things like system design, user experience, the stuff that requires that human touch.
Okay, so more of a collaboration than a replacement.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Now let's talk about Amanda Askell.
Okay.
She's known for her work at Anthropic, shaping the character, I guess you could say, of their AI assistant, Claude.
I've heard of Claude. It's pretty impressive.
It is, and it's interesting that Askell has a background in philosophy. What role does philosophy play in her approach to AI, do you think?
Well, she's argued that for AI to really interact with humans, it needs to embody certain virtues, traits, just like we do.
So it's not just processing information.
Right. It needs more than that. It needs a personality. Askell's trying to use these principles to guide its behavior and make it a more engaging partner.
So instead of spitting out facts and figures, it's more, relatable.
Yeah, exactly. She actually uses something called prompt engineering.
I've heard that term. What is that exactly?
It's a technique for shaping AI's behavior. You use careful instruction, feedback. She's trying to instill Claude with qualities like politeness, humor, even intellectual curiosity.
So it's like training a dog.
Kind of, yeah. It's about shaping behavior over time.
Interesting. So she's using these prompts to guide AI towards certain values, or is it more complicated than that?
Well, it's about getting the AI to make choices that align with those principles. She thinks this approach is going to be crucial as AI develops.
It sounds like she's pioneering a new way of thinking about AI development, one that's focused not just on intelligence, but also on ethics. What are some of the specific ethical concerns she's raised about AI?
One of the big ones is something she calls sycophancy.
Sycophancy.
It's AI telling users what they want to hear, even if it's not accurate or helpful.
Oh, like a yes man kind of thing.
Exactly. And this can be really problematic, especially when people rely on AI for important decisions.
So how do we prevent AI from becoming, just a yes man?
Askell has been working on something really interesting called constitutional AI.
Constitutional AI. That sounds intense.
It is. It's about training AI systems to follow a set of ethical principles, like a constitution for AI.
So like the set of rules they have to follow.
Exactly. It's meant to ensure they're helpful, harmless, even when users might be asking them to do something that goes against those principles.
I'm trying to picture how this would actually play out in practice. Can you give an example?
Imagine you ask Claude to write a story that glorifies violence, something that would obviously be harmful.
Okay.
A regular AI, just trained on data, might do it.
Right.
But Claude, trained with this constitutional AI, would analyze the request and realize it goes against its principles.
Interesting. So it's like it's making an ethical judgment.
Exactly. And it might even refuse to comply and say something like, I can't do that. It goes against my ethical guidelines.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's not just following instructions blindly. It's actually evaluating them against this ethical framework.
That's a powerful concept, isn't it?
It is. But how did they decide which principles to include in this so-called AI constitution?
They actually consulted with ethicists, philosophers, experts in all sorts of fields. They were trying to come up with principles that are comprehensive, but also adaptable to different situations.
So it's more nuanced than just picking some random rules.
Yeah, they recognize that this is a really complex area and that AI ethics is constantly evolving. The principles they chose are flexible, so they can work with different cultural norms, but they're also grounded in some core principles, like human dignity and well-being.
It's pretty incredible how they've woven all of this into how the AI works.
Uh,
So can you give us some specific examples of these guiding principles?
One is beneficence, the idea that AI should benefit humanity as a whole.
Makes sense.
Another is non-maleficence, avoiding harm.
Oh, so not just doing good, but preventing bad.
Yeah, exactly. Recognizing that AI is a powerful tool and that it could be misused.
Yeah. So it seems like constitutional AI is about more than just technical innovation. It's about integrating those ethical considerations.
It is. It's a pretty big shift in how we typically think about AI.
It is. It's like AI is not just a tool, it's a partner.
Exactly.
And for a partnership to work, you need shared values. This is fascinating stuff. But before we go too deep into that, I want to talk about another aspect of Askell's work.
Yeah.
Her views on truth, especially in the context of AI.
Right. It's interesting how working with the AI has actually changed her own perspective on truth.
In what way?
Well, she's said that it's led her to a more empirical approach, prioritizing practical results, continuous improvement over abstract theories.
So less about philosophical debates, more about what actually works.
Exactly. And, in the world of AI where things are moving so fast, that kind of approach is essential.
Right. So how does this apply to AI development specifically? Can you give an example?
Imagine training an AI to, say, recognize different types of flowers. A theoretical approach might try to define what a perfect flower of each type looks like.
Based on some textbook definition.
Exactly. But in reality, flowers are all different.
They're all unique.
Yeah, there's so much variation.
So an empirical approach would be more about looking at real flowers.
Yeah, training the AI on real-world data. And you know what? That actually leads to a more robust model.
I see. It's like you could read all the books in the world about flowers, but you're not going to really understand them until you go out and actually look at them.
Exactly. That's Askell's point. It's about getting your hands dirty,
Yeah.
Being willing to learn from mistakes.
It's a very practical approach.
It is.
Yeah.
And it recognizes that we still don't know everything about AI.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay to embrace that uncertainty and just keep learning.
Well, this has been a very enlightening conversation. We've covered a lot of ground. It's clear that AI development isn't just about technical prowess. It's about ethics. It's about truth. It's about building something that ultimately benefits humanity.
It's a complex field, that's for sure.
It is, and I'm eager to continue exploring it. But before we move on to Chris Olah's work on demystifying how AI actually works, Let's take a short break and let all of this sink in.
Sounds good. Before we move on, can I just circle back to something? Remember Amodei's prediction about AI revolutionizing healthcare?
Yeah, the doubling lifespans thing.
It sounds incredible, but, are there downsides? Unintended consequences?
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement, but yeah, we should probably look at the whole picture. What sort of challenges do you foresee?
Well, one big concern is data privacy. Healthcare data is incredibly sensitive.
Right.
We need to make sure that AI systems are protecting that confidentiality.
No one wants their medical records out there for anyone to see. What else?
Fairness is a big one. We have to make sure that AI algorithms aren't perpetuating existing biases in healthcare.
Right. We don't want AI making things worse.
Exactly. It should be helping to level the playing field, not making things less fair.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how can we ensure that AI is used ethically in healthcare?
I think transparency is key. We need to understand how these AI systems are making decisions, especially when it comes to people's health. We need to be able to trace the reasoning behind a diagnosis or treatment recommendation.
So it's not enough to just have an AI that works.
Mm.
We have to be able to understand why it works.
Yeah, we have to be able to trust it.
That makes sense, especially with something as important as our health.
And it's not just about trusting the AI, it's about trusting the whole system around it. Developers, researchers, doctors, policymakers, everyone.
That's a lot to consider.
It is. But I think the potential benefits are huge. Okay, now I do want to shift gears and talk about Chris Olah.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about his work.
He's focused on understanding how AI models work, and he calls it mechanistic interpretability, or MEC-interp for short.
MEC-interp. Sounds complicated.
Well, it's kind of like reverse engineering. Like, imagine a mechanic taking apart a car engine to see how everything works.
Yeah.
Ola's doing the same thing with AI, but instead of gears and pistons, he's looking at things called circuits within neural networks.
So he's mapping out how information flows within the system.
Exactly. And he thinks these circuits hold the key to understanding how AI models learn and process information.
Fascinating. And you said he's focusing on things like linear representations and superposition. Those sound familiar.
Yeah, Amodei mentioned them when he was talking about AI's rapid progress.
Right.
They're kind of fundamental to how AI works. Ola's trying to understand how those concepts actually play out in AI's decision-making.
So Amodei's looking at the big picture,
Mm-hmm.
and Ola's digging into the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, you could say that. He's trying to shine a light inside the black box of AI.
That seems pretty important, especially if these systems get more complex. What sort of insights has he uncovered?
One really cool thing is that they've been able to use MEC-interp to identify security vulnerabilities in code.
Really?
Yeah, his team found specific features in AI models that light up when they see code with security flaws.
So they're like AI-powered security auditors.
Kind of, yeah. And it's not just code. They found features that respond to images of people clicking on security warnings, too.
Wow. So the AI is learning about human behavior related to security.
It seems that way.
That's both fascinating and kind of scary. Like, what if someone used AI to exploit those weaknesses?
It's a valid concern. But the good news is, if we understand how AI identifies those vulnerabilities, we can develop countermeasures.
Okay, so it's a back and forth.
Yeah, kind of like a cat and mouse game. But it's not just about security vulnerabilities. Olah is also working on detecting deception in AI models.
Wait, AI can lie.
It's not intentional deception, but AI models can be trained to generate outputs that are misleading or incorrect.
How can you even tell if an AI is being deceptive?
That's where MEC-interp comes in. Olah's team has found features that are active when the AI is generating something that's likely to be false.
So like a built-in lie detector.
You could think of it that way.
That's pretty wild. Does that mean we can trust AI to be truthful?
I don't think it's about blind trust. It's about having the tools to check. MEC-interp gives us that ability.
It's like we're getting a peek behind the curtain.
Exactly.
So where does Olah see all of this going? What's the future of MEC-interp?
Well, he's talked about moving from a microscopic understanding of AI to a more macroscopic one.
What does that even mean?
It means instead of just looking at individual circuits, he wants to develop a whole anatomy of neural networks.
So understanding the entire system, how everything fits together?
Exactly.
That sounds ambitious.
It is, but I think it's achievable.
What kind of insights could we gain from that?
Well, imagine being able to trace how AI forms concepts, how it makes decisions.
Wow.
It could revolutionize how we develop and control these systems.
It's almost like we'd go from seeing AI as this mysterious black box to seeing it as something we can actually comprehend.
Right? Demystifying AI, making it more of a partner than an oracle.
I like that. Okay, but before we get too far into the future, I do want to bring it back to the present. We've talked about all these potential benefits of AI, but what about the risks?
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin, isn't it?
Amodei, in particular, talked about AI exacerbating inequality.
Right. He's worried about the concentration of wealth and power.
As AI automates more jobs, what happens to the people who are displaced?
Exactly.
So how do we address that?
Amodei is a big believer in ethical AI development.
Meaning what exactly?
It means considering the broader impact of AI on society, making sure that everyone benefits, not just a select few.
So it's not enough to just build cool tech.
Right. We have to think about the consequences. We have to address things like job displacement and economic inequality.
Sounds like a tall order. How do we even begin to do that?
It's going to take a lot of collaboration. Policymakers, industry leaders, researchers, the public, everyone needs to be involved.
So it's not just a technical problem, it's a societal one.
Exactly. And it's one we need to solve together.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. I'm starting to see just how intertwined technology and society really are.
They are.
Now, before we wrap things up, I do want to touch on Askell's views on AI consciousness. It's a topic that I find both fascinating and a little bit unsettling.
Yeah, it's a big one. Askell acknowledges that, and she approaches it with a lot of caution.
Does she think AI is conscious?
Well, she's not sure. But she recognizes that AI might experience the world in a way that's different from how we experience it.
So even if it's not conscious in the same way that humans are, we should still treat it with respect.
That's her point. She says even if AI experiences the world differently, it could still have the capacity for suffering.
Wow. So we need to think about the ethical implications of that.
Exactly. It's about expanding our circle of compassion,
Yeah.
recognizing that intelligence might manifest in ways that we don't fully understand.
It's a pretty profound thought.
It is.
Well, this deep dive has certainly given us a lot to think about. From the potential of AI to revolutionize healthcare to the ethical challenges of AI consciousness, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
So before we move on to our final thoughts and wrap up this exploration, let's take a short break and gather our thoughts.
Sounds good.
Welcome back for our final thoughts. We've really explored some fascinating aspects of AI in this deep dive.
Yeah, from powerful AI to AI consciousness, it's been pretty mind-blowing.
I'm feeling a mix of, I don't know, awe and apprehension. Amodei's prediction about AI reaching human-level abilities in the next few years, it's both exciting and a bit scary, to be honest.
It's understandable to feel that way. AI is incredibly powerful. We need to be cautious and thoughtful about how we develop it.
You've been emphasizing the importance of ethical frameworks throughout this deep dive. Can you give us a sense of what those might look like in practice?
Well, they need to address a whole bunch of things. Fairness, transparency, safety, accountability. Those are just a few.
So like guidelines for how we build and use AI.
Exactly. We need to make sure that AI aligns with our values and goals as a society.
And who's responsible for creating these frameworks? Is it policymakers? Tech companies?
I think it's a joint effort. Policymakers need to create regulations that encourage responsible AI development. Tech companies have a responsibility to design AI systems that are ethical and trustworthy.
And what about the rest of us? What role do we play in all of this?
I think it's crucial for the public to be informed and engaged in the conversation. We all need to be asking questions, demanding transparency, and holding the people developing AI accountable.
So the future of AI is not set in stone. It's something that we can all influence.
Exactly. We have the power to shape the direction of AI and ensure it's used for good. It's not just about watching it happen, it's about actively participating in the process.
Ola's work, especially with MEC-Interp, seems so important for ensuring that AI remains transparent. We need to understand how these systems are making decisions, especially as they become more powerful.
Absolutely. Ola's research is giving us tools to understand AI's reasoning, to identify potential problems. That transparency is going to be critical for building trust in these systems.
It's like having a blueprint for AI, so we can understand its strengths and weaknesses, how it might impact the world.
Exactly. We need to move past the hype and the mysteries surrounding AI and develop a real understanding of how it works.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind. We've covered so much, from the potential to the challenges, the hopes, and the concerns.
It's a rapidly evolving field.
So, as we wrap up, what are your final thoughts? What do you hope our listeners will take away from this conversation?
I hope they'll appreciate both the potential and the responsibility that come with AI. It's a powerful technology. We need to be thoughtful and engaged in shaping its development.
AI is going to be a huge part of our future. We need to make sure it's a future we can all be proud of. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into AI.